All right. So, a very good evening to everyone. Welcome to the very second edition of Debatables. Honestly, we can't believe it, the fact that, we're holding a second edition after the love and response we got for the first one. So, a very warm welcome to all the participants, to all the viewers, to everyone who has joined us. Uh, Debatables, just a brief introduction to this whole competition or this whole chapter of ours, was brought for the love of debating and for the need of introducing debate to society. As a TEDx, we at TEDxSomaiyaVidyavihar wish to elaborate the importance of public speaking and to raise a voice and to bring about new ideas. When we brought this entire collaboration to DepSoc, we joined hands knowing the fact that we have something which is coming along for good and something which is going to help people for the future. Why debatable? Number one was to express oneself. As we are seeing, the world's getting more competitive, world's getting more bigger. Our thought processes are changing. Our thoughts need to be voiced out. And these days, our voice is becoming a most important tool or weapon, depending on what we need it for. So the importance to express oneself is something which we wanted to clearly target. Besides that, critical thinking. We need new ideas. We need new thoughts. We need people to think on a certain subject, on a certain issue, a certain manner which needs, a fresh perspective, a fresh idea, something on those lines. So to bring about critical thinking is what Debatable is about. Other than that, improving our skills, improving our voice, our speech delivery, public speaking skills. Besides that, our team enhance, team building, teams collaborations. That is something we believe is something which is dying out in this world. Like every day, we are so fighting amongst ourselves. Is whether it's in a competition, whether it's in exams, whether it is in life. We need something which should keep us grounded, keep us moving. To work along with society and to improve society in one shot. That is why we went ahead into debatables. So, moving along with the changes from Debatable Season 1 to Season 2. When we started Debatable Season 1, we started off with a mere 72 participants, in short, having 36 teams, which went along for a week. This time, we can proudly say that we have now a competition involving 96 participants, which is 48 teams, which is more than what we did last year. While we had three debates over two slots. This time for the Eliminators, we had four debates over three slots going over the next 3 days, followed by the league stages where we'll be having four debates over two slots. As the debates progress, we will be informing you, the viewers, and the participants more on what exactly the changes will be, how exactly the league state will go on, and everything that goes about. Uh, Other than that, we are also keeping again the Oxford style of debating, which basically is an introduction to the entire style of Oxford and British parliamentary debates. Somaiya Debating Society is an expert in all these and has been training these since the time it has been a team club from KJSCE. So, with that, we welcome everyone to Debatables 2.0 or Season 2 and a big warm applause for all the participants who have made it here. Is there anyone from Team Tedx, SomaiyaVidyavihar, or Somaiya Debating Society who would like to add a few words?
Sure. So, as Rudra said, this platform and this activity is something that holds a lot of importance to us in Somaiya Debate Society. And we in the last year have been espousing this quality to be more and more widespread amongst the students so that students themselves can understand the various topics that are like drawn across the board in news channels, mass media, etc., etc. So we're very thankful to you participants for making our event what it is today. It's because of you guys that we have been able to improve upon our last year's uh, debatable season 1, and we hope that you guys will enjoy this event to the extremist. And with any if there's anything from us that's required, please feel free to again ask the moderators or anybody. We hope you have a very splendid event. Thank you so much.
All right. So with this, we officially open Debatable Season 2. So, as per your schedules, we will be beginning the first debate at 6 o'clock. Your rooms have been allotted, and we will be live streaming room 1 for the entirety of today's event. A request to all Room 1 participants would be to kindly turn on your cameras when the live stream begins. At all moments, if there's any audience or viewers within the Discord server, kindly mute yourselves and uh, please maintain decorum. At the of the end of every debate, there will be 2 or 5 minutes given in which you can ask the participants or the adjudicators about your thoughts or queries or questions. With that, we can open Debatable Season 2. If the participants have any query, you can kindly take the floor. Yes. Yeah, please change screen for now. Ishan, you talk for it?
Yes.
All
Yes.
right, great. Okay, so welcome back, guys. We'll be doing a small session with the participants of Debatable Season 2 to introduce themselves and to get to know our first time participants here. So, with that, I would like to first introduce our first participant over this link, Mr. Ishan Mittal. So, Ishan, could you please introduce yourself?
Hi, my name's Ishan. I'm from the first year AIDS batch of Somaiya, and basically, I'm pretty interested in debating. I've been debating my almost my entire life since I was young, and I'm generally fond of arguing in a competitive environment, and I'm basically very fond of it.
Wow, perfect. So, Ishan, could you please elaborate, like when you said I've been debating all my life, could you just elaborate what form of competitions and where all you have participated?
So, throughout my school life, I've participated in Model United Nations, which has really built up my confidence and my personality. And even through my colleges, 11th and 12th, also I participated in team debates across various competitions and various intercollegiate fests. Basically, all of that.
Okay, that's amazing to hear. So, were there any accounts you would like to recall about your debating history or certain moments which have, you've kept with you as a reminder of, why you want to go ahead and why this got you in the first place and what keeps you driving, basically?
So basically, what keeps me driving is basically most importantly the prizes. First of all, I really feel proud every time I win the debates. I feel I've accomplished something. What got me debating was my teachers. In fact, I used to argue a lot with my teachers, so they encouraged me to argue competitively as a sport, as a member of a team for the college and for the schools instead of arguing with them. And basically, I can't recall a moment as of particular which I treasure. All my debates have been special. The ones which I've won have been more special. And even the ones I've lost, I treasure because I learned a lot from my losses, way more than the ones in which I've won. So basically, that.
It's amazing, Ishan. Thank you so much for, joining in and, sharing all about your entire debating history. And honestly, it's quite amazing. Like, glad to have you on board with Debatable Season 2.
Thank you so much. My pleasure.
Okay. Uh, would anyone else like to speak or go ahead and introduce themselves? No worries. So, could someone from DevSoc probably show up? Let's have a small interview and session. Let's just get to know each other and understand about the debatables process of what we've been working on for the last 2 or 3 months.
Hello.
Hello?
Yeah, Rudra. You wanted someone from STS, right?
Yeah, hey, Somrik.
Yeah.
Okay. Just to introduce to the viewers and participants alike, this is Mr. Somrik Biswas from Somaiya Debating Society. We have been working together for the last 2 or 3 months, compiling debatables. And Somrik has also participated in Debatable Season 1. So glad to have you on board, Somrik. How have you been?
Yeah, I'm doing good. We are having a lot of fun having setting up Debatables season 2.
All right, amazing. So, when it comes to organizing debates for say Debatable Season 2 or in Somaiya Debating Society, what are the challenges or the things which you guys look up to or have to go for?
So while we're setting up debates, our first and primary responsibility is to give a good experience to everybody who's participating. So a major part of that is actually figuring out the motions and the topics that the debates will take place on. So that is one of the big factors. Other than that, other than figuring out logistics, have selecting the people. Those are some of the big factors that we have to work on.
It's amazing, Solver. Uh, Now I know you have been debating for quite some time. I've been following the entire debating societies, list of debates which go on with where it comes from debatables to big Somaiya debates to even the Friday sessions which you're hold. Is there any session in particular you would like to recall which stays with you, which has been fun or overall intrigued you to continue debating further?
Uh, from what I can remember, I started debating in college. Okay, so it was my first year when I started debating, and starting on, I was a very rookie debater because I'd never debated much in my school. So once I got into debating, I had this guy debate with me. His name was Moin, and he was a senior. And I was very intimidated when I first came into college. And there was a motion that was very passionate to me, and I just started debating hard on it. And like I started saying a lot of things, and not a lot of it actually made sense. And we came last in that debate. But I thought everybody was gonna be angry at me. But I got a very everybody was very calm, and everybody explained it to me that, see, always during debating, it doesn't matter how much conviction or how much emotion you put into your argument. What matters is the quality of your arguments and how you are actually framing your arguments. Logic matter scores over emotions in debates. That was what I learned.
That's amazing. And quite a rise from, being someone who's new to debates to, organizing debates. That's quite a jump on the.
Well, I have had some very good people with me here. We have Parth, who is an excellent debater. He too was a rookie when he started debating, but uh, here we are.
Oh, no, I absolutely remember those days because when debating society had started off, like at least for us, when we were in our first years, it was quite a sight to see because that time it was, quite fresh. You could see new faces, everyone wanting to come out and speak. It was quite fun. And I remember Parth in that phase, like he was quite, excitable. He was always wanting to go out there to discuss, chat, uh, you know, bring about like a lot of arguments, discussions, and, jump in that point. So it's
Yes, Parth in a
fun to
nutshell.
see you guys, coming up this way.
It's been an awesome experience. So
That's amazing.
this is why I try to explain to people and those first time debaters I come across that debating is not what we see in TV where there are a bunch of people yelling at each other and interrupting each other. Debating is a more civilized discussion where you don't put emotions but you use logic to defeat the arguments, or even if you are defeated you emerge from it a more logical and a better person. That has always been the goal.
That's amazing. Thank you so much, Somrik, for joining me in on this. Great to hear from you about Somaiya Debating Society and your entire journey. It's quite an amazing feat.
Thank you, Rudra.
Okay. With this, I'm inviting next Miss Ridhima Sharma. She is currently with TEDxSomaiyaVidyavihar. So, Ridhima, are you there?
Yes, I'm here.
Okay, guys. So, Ridhima, could you just introduce yourself and what you do at TEDxSomaiyaVidyavihar?
Sure. So, hi everybody. I'm Ridhima Sharma. I study at SK Somaiya College and I'm in my second year currently. I've been affiliated with TEDx since the past 1.5 year now, and currently I am the co-organizer. When I started out at TEDx, I joined in as an event experience manager, and it has been quite a long journey since then. So, yeah.
Quite, that's quite a feat. And honestly, I have seen, the way you've progressed, right, from the event days to now becoming a co-organizer. It's quite a feat. So, Ridhima, could you share what inspires you to, continue and work with TEDx? Why is it you go ahead and do things like debate rooms, our salons, and all the events and social media campaigns which we do?
Sure. So I am currently in mass media, and I was actually looking forward to working as an event manager somewhere. And as soon as that TEDx email came, and I was very excited, I got in. And since then, TEDx has been like this home for me that always brings new experiences, and I have always something new to learn. So if I would, and if I could, I would always continue with TEDx even after I'm graduated. But the people here, the environment, Hetal ma'am, everybody is just so motivating. that they inspire me every single day to brainstorm ideas for TEDx and work for it, no matter how much assignments I have. So, yeah, it's not out of what do you call a pressure or anything, but I actually love TEDx so much that I will always would want to work for it.
It's amazing. That's amazing. Okay. Ridhima, I have a question for you. How does the phrase of TEDx ideas worth spreading resonate to you and your team?
All right, ideas worth spreading. If you've seen most of our campaigns in our social media, we want to cover the part that the world hasn't seen. We want to give opportunity to those people who don't get a platform to speak. So when we talk about ideas, TEDx is like a box full of ideas, and we just need to create something out of it. So we have our events team that works day and night to curate such events. We collaborate with people because ideas it is where everything starts from. So until you don't have an idea, you cannot form an event. So that's that.
It's amazing. Any few key moments you would like to share about your time at TEDx? Certain events, conversations, things which we have done over the last 1.5 years or something more.
Sure. So when I was the event experience manager, Rudra put all his faith in me and he's like, okay, Ridhima, I will choose your event, your idea, and let's just execute it. I was pretty scared at first and it was jam, just a minute. But somehow we all managed and we got Hormaz Regina, who's one of the biggest jam masters in India. And our event was actually pretty successful. So it was a very proud moment for me, and it gave me a lot of assurance that TEDx is exactly the place where I want to be. So that was one of the moments that I would like to share.
That's you got me emotional, man. Honestly, I remember Jam event quite well, very well, in fact. Like right from connecting with Hamas to planning out the logistics to even executing it, like completely everything's like in the back of my mind. It was quite a fun experience, and it was quite unique to bring up sort of a new idea to the campus. I mean,
For
till,
sure.
till then we only had seen just a minute competitions and very varied fests such as Malhar, Immaculata, uh, even others intercollegiate meets or something.
Absolutely. Like as we say, TEDx is everything about being out of the box and brainstorming something unique. So yeah.
That's amazing. Thank you so much, Ridhima, for joining it with me for this for this interview. Uh,
Thank you.
Now I have a small question for the participants. Um, why is it that you guys like debating, or why do you want to continue debating? And you'll have signed up for Debatable Season 2. Guys, even if you have any queries for DevSoc, TEDx in general, you can shoot out questions. That's also fine.
I have a question. Who was the winner of Debatable Season 1?
Um,
It was Garima and Karima. They were the winners.
yes, that was quite a journey as well. I mean, I've been following the debates, like all the debates which are happening simultaneously, and these two, Karima and Karina, they come across like very hard. Like till the end moment, they were fighting. Parth would be able to tell you more about it. He was also there, I think, in Debatable Season 1.
Yes, Path was the first runner up. That was right.
All right, guys, I think with that, we'll be taking a short break. We'll be resuming from 6 p.m. onwards when the slots begin. Uh, we have already briefed you about what is need to be said and done and how the debates will be progressing. If you have any queries, you can ask the moderators, you can ask the adjudicators, and so on and so forth. So, Debsock, you are free to introduce the adjudicators as well for the today's session. All right, we will be back after a short break.
Hello, everyone. First of all, welcome to the first round of Debatable Seasons 2.0. Today, we are going to have the motion before the House that this House would eliminate any legal or ethical limitations from the field of genetic research on improving the human body. I'm Parth Shah, and I'm going to be your chair for this debate. I have under me paneling Rudra. Rudra, can you please introduce yourself?
Hey guys, my name is Rudra Jog. I am currently in my last year of engineering at KJSCE. I was formerly the student organizer at TEDxSomaiyaVidyavihar, and as of this year, I am with the team as a team mentor. Along with me from my team is Aman Malik. He will be, hosting this room. And yeah, I'll hand over the mic to Parth and Aman.
Hey guys, I'm Aman and I'll be your presiding officer for today. With us is Parth, who will be chairing this debate. So I hope the format is clear with you all. I'll just go over it very quickly. First up, we'll have the first speaker from the proposition, followed by the first speaker from the opposition. Both these speeches will be of 3 minutes each. This will be followed by a rebuttal round, which will be of 4 minutes long. After which we'll have the second speaker from the proposition, followed by the second speaker from the opposition. Again, these will be of 3 minutes each. Speakers, please note that you will have 3 minutes to put your arguments forward, after which you will get exactly 15 seconds to wrap up your entire speech. Anything you say after this will not be considered by the chair. Lastly, we'll have the concluding speech from the proposition, followed by the concluding speech from the opposition. Both these speeches will be of 2 minutes each. Alright, on that note, I would like the first speaker to introduce themselves. First speaker from the proposition, can you please introduce yourself?
Just a second. Before that, I'd just like to introduce a concept. Like, if anybody, if you have any gender preferred pronouns, please feel free to use them. And before, like during your introductions. And as for the panel, you may refer to me and Rudra and everybody else on the panel in its entirety as a whole. We do not have any gender pronouns for that. Just refer to us as the panel in whole. Yeah, please continue with the introductions.
Good evening. My name is Jeet Savardekar. I am a second year student of computer engineering at KJSC, and I would be the first speaker from the proposition.
Can the second speaker from proposition please introduce themselves?
Hey everyone, I'm Shrem Bora. I am also a second year computer engineering student and I will be the second speaker for the proposition. Thank you. All the best.
Thank you, speaker. Can the first speaker from opposition introduce themselves?
Sarkar from last year electronics department, and I'll be the first speaker in the opposition. Thank you. All the best.
Okay.
Good
Can
evening. This is Durva Raikan, and I'm from fourth year engineering department, and I'll be the second speaker from the opposition. All the best.
Okay. Thank you so much. I'll share the timer so that it'll be easier to keep a track of the time. And speakers, please join the live. Is my screen visible to all?
Yes, Aman, you're visible.
Yes. Can you put 3 minutes 15 seconds because we will be getting 15 seconds either way, right? Thank you.
Oh,
So the time limit for the first speaker from each proposition and opposition is 3 minutes 15 seconds, right?
3 minutes and 15 seconds to wrap up your entire speech.
Okay, thank you.
Also, since the rebuttal round is of 4 minutes, and since we do want to maintain parity on both sides of the House, the number of questions which will be asked on the government and the opposition bench needs to be the same. So I would request both the teams to make sure that you do not overstep your time limitations or boundaries and like eat into the opposition's or the government's time for asking questions or answering them. Thank you.
Now I would like to call upon the first speaker from the proposition to open the debate. Speaker, please let me know whenever you are ready. I'll start the timer.
Yeah, I'm ready.
All right.
I'm going to be speaking in favor of the motion today that the House will eliminate all legal and ethical limitations on the field of genetic research aimed at improving the human body. Research has one purpose. Scientific research has one purpose in today's world is to make the world a better and a safer place. And today, we are reeling from COVID, the pandemic, which has thrown so many variants at us that we were barely able to duck. And one thing that has helped us through this is genetic research. Now let's talk about limitations. Limitations have always been there in science, not imposed by man but imposed by nature. And upon that, when we impose limitations by man, it completely restricts the scope of scientists who are hoping to make life better for all of us. Genetic research helped in COVID by allowing variants to be identified and for allowing pharmaceutical companies to develop drugs against it. Now, when this genetic research will be applied on the human body, we can actually change the resistance of our body towards these diseases in the future. A calamity like COVID cannot befall us if we allow genetic research to be continued unabated. But you might think, rules are good, aren't they? Restrictions are good. Restrictions are good when they are imposed by good bodies, just bodies. Today, who are governing these restrictions which will be imposed on genetic research? They are being governed by, say, the WHO. They are being governed by many federal bodies. And one thing that is rampant throughout federal bodies, irrespective of which country they are in, is corruption. And this corruption has often led to genetic research or research of any kind, especially genetic research, to be curtailed considerably. Third, and this is in conjunction to the second point, is that there is what is commonly known as a pharmaceutical mafia operating in this world right now. Genetic research has the capability to do wonders. Genetic research today has reached a point, according to some scientists, that it might actually cure type 2 diabetes. But it is a known fact that many pharmaceutical companies have actively tried to curtail the growth of genetic research to propagate their own drugs and to gain a profit, which is in the end the aim of these corporations. So basically, genetic research has to continue without limitations because the people who are framing the rules are not just, and the people who are actually working, the scientists, they know what is better for what is great for the betterment of the world, and that is how it should continue. Thank you.
All right. I would like to call upon the first speaker from the opposition to put their case forward. Speaker, please let me know when to start the timer.
Yeah, you can start the time. Good evening, everybody. I am the first speaker from the opposition, and I would like to bring light to the thing which my opposition spoke, that is corruption. And if there is corruption in the governance of the people who are governing the research, is there no corruption inside the inside the community where the research is going on? So if you can do the research unbiased, you can give your offspring immune to the Alzheimer's. We can also give them enhanced metabolism, and this will only give the authority or the people to give biased outcomes. As soon as DNA was discovered, people tried to tinker with it. Gene editing was extremely expensive, complicated, and took a long time to do. This has now changed with a revolutionary new technology and entering the stage of CRISPR, clustered regularly interspaced short palindromic repeats. Overnight, the costs of engineering have shrunk by 99%. Instead of a year, it takes a few weeks to conduct experiments, and basically everybody with a lab can do it. It's hard to get across how big technical revolution is. It literally has a potential to change the humanity forever. But all of these medical applications have one thing in common. They are limited to individual and die with them, except if you use them on reproductive cells or very early embryos. But CRISPR can and probably will be used for much more. The creation of modified humans and designer babies and will mean gradual but irreversible changes to the human gene pool. The means to edit the genome of a human embryo already exists through the technology is still in its early stages, but it has been already been attempted twice. In 2015 and 16, Chinese scientists experimented with human embryos and were partially successful on their second attempt. Currently, there are only few limitations in the genetic engineering, and those are natural imbalance, cost involved, side effects, very few research material available, birth phase, intention of the researchers, legal issues, and ethical analysis. The release of genetically altered organisms in the environment can increase human suffering, decrease animal harmony, and lead to ecological disasters. The containment of biotechnological material in laboratories and industrial plants involves two layers of risk. The first is the possibility of an accidental release in and by itself, whether or not this organism, which is released by the research, is normal or an undesired event. And the second layer of risk is visible as the case of accidental release and increased probability with which it can produce the harm. The designer's baby will not be overly designed gradually, but it may cause issues later on. Thank you.
All right, thank you, speaker. Now, with that done, we'll move on to the rebuttal rounds. This will be of 4 minutes long and it starts with a question from the opposition. Proposition will take it up and they'll ask another question in turn. No cross questioning, cross talk, or follow up questions will be allowed. If you feel your question wasn't addressed satisfactorily, they'll be taken care by the chair in their verdict. Also, please keep your questions short and to the point. With that done, opposition, please go ahead and ask the first question whenever you're ready.
Okay, so I would like to go first and ask a question. That is restriction really a step back? Medicine today has also many restrictions, like there are many medical laws and governing agencies which control how medical research goes on, and that has not proven in harm of any person till now. So how come genetic engineering, which is such a sensitive and a very important topic, should not be monitored by anybody, so that will just cause issues later on?
I would like to answer that. So, medicine right now, modern medicine as we know it, is not really as modern as we think. Allopathy is pretty old now. And as it has evolved, these restrictions have slowly come in place. Genetic engineering, on the other hand, is a very new discipline. And in a very new discipline, the scope for research is boundless. And it is more, genetic research is more restricted to laboratories than corporates right now. So I think this is why genetic engineering should not have limitations, while normal medicine or modern medicine should have limitations that you're speaking of. Thank you.
I have a question for the opposition. So, considering it's already 2022, right, and with the possible climate change, all of those issues which we already face, don't you think restricting something which has such future possibilities, future capabilities like genetic research, don't you think restricting such a medium would actually prove more harm to mankind than actually help?
I would like to answer this question of yours. I'd say that if there is no limitation to anything, that can only cause harm. So anything which doesn't have any limit is generally proved as harm to the environment as well. So if you design a person in such a way that he is not prone to any disease in this world, like you spoke about COVID. So if there's a person who is not prone to any disease in this world, how is the ecological balance going to be maintained? So there is a very and urgent need to put strict limitations to the genetic engineering. Thank you.
And I would like to ask a question. As you said of corruption and how drug companies should be allowed to monitor how they research a particular field. So I would like to say that drug companies work on main motive of is getting profit out of any. So if it goes to a kind of industry where it just caters to the rich people and their a desire for creating a perfect baby or a perfect human out of it, then the drug companies will of course go and help them in that area. So how can not restricting it by a government body which mainly has a motive of keeping the entire system under control not something which is more practical and beneficial for the entire human society.
I would like to answer that question. So basically, the perfect baby or the perfect human that you talk of, yes, that would be the bastion of the rich. But the advancements that will go towards it would definitely be available to the common people. And secondly, as I said, government that you're talking about is filled with people who do not have any basis, any knowledge in this situation. While on the other hand, laboratories, the scientists working in the labs, they actually have knowledge. They have degrees from great universities about this topic. So I think they are better placed to decide where to supply this or where to give these technologies rather than the government, which I don't think has much of a perspective in this.
I think I disagree with it because government also has many skilled people
Sorry
for
to
this.
interrupt, you're not allowed. I'm so sorry for cutting across, but so.
Yes.
I know that the time is done, but I will still allow opposition, the government bench, to ask one small question to the opposition bench, but the answer has to be short within 30 seconds, for 30 to 40 seconds. Government, you can start.
Ajit, if you have any questions, I don't have anything.
Yeah, I would like to ask the opposition that don't you think that talking about that a perfect baby is very difficult to achieve right now? Don't you think the little advancements towards that end goal are going to benefit the people as a whole?
Yes, it would benefit our people as a whole, but only and only if it is restricted and only if it is monitored by a body which has no interest in either getting money out of it, or it is just for the sake of monitoring with a neutral opinion about it. And that is only how it will help in the medicine development and any other research for it.
Thank you, speakers. Now that we are done with the rebuttal, I would like to invite the second speaker from the proposition to put their case forward. Speaker, please let me know when you're ready to start the timer.
Yep, I'm ready to go. I'll be starting in 3, 2, 1. Okay. All right. So I think quite a valued argument raised by my side and the opposition side as well. So I'll just try to, bring into context certain points which were made by my teammate and also certain points which were raised during the rebuttal round, which I feel need addressing, right? So coming to the first point which was raised, like coming to person who can genetically modify to have no disease. Just consider a person who is suffering from polio, or consider a person who is born disabled, or consider you just getting normal cough and cold. Don't you think if you have advanced genetically to a level where you are able to make small changes in your genome and you don't suffer from these common diseases at all, don't you think that's something which everyone and the human society should work towards? Next was the point which was raised about monitoring people and monitoring actual government bodies, monitoring what the science is going on. But most of the time in government offices, government bodies like these, you have people who have just gone through via normal processes, and more often than not, they have minute understanding of what the topic actually is. So in those cases, you can't actually make observations or make decisions which is going to affect the whole world if you don't know what the topic actually is about. Now, essentially, when we talk about genetic modification as a whole, right, the main essence and main goal is to consolidate our futures. When we try to do something, it's always key when I in the future this is going to benefit us. And I think especially in the current scenario and the current time, going into the future, genetic evolution is the way forward, because essentially once you make key changes in our genome, in our genetic structures, you bring about certain changes, bring around certain key characteristics in the human body, which would lead to us essentially long living, right? For example, Jeet had raised was about COVID, obviously, something which genetic modification helped us was identify all the different variants which was raised. Another example of how genetic modification has helped us is obviously the crops and the farmers. It can be genetically modified to actually show and be resistant to certain herbs, herbicides, pesticides, etc. So going forward in the future, if we actually want to enrich our lives and actually lengthen the way and have a better livelihood, I think genetic modification should be the way forward, and that's why it should be taken up without any limits. Thank you.
All right, thank you, speaker. I would like to invite the second speaker from opposition to put their case forward. Speaker, please start whenever you're ready. I'll start the timer.
Ready. Speaking about the cures of many diseases that have come across, like we can say polio or anything of that sort. So don't like when we say a person cures someone or this, we look forward to a doctor. And how can we say that a person is a doctor? He or she has to go through a medical college and has to complete a legal certified course on which we can keep trust on. Now, if we just look about anyone can, by the knowledge of genetic engineering, can create any kind of cure for it. But how a common person will be able to trust him or her if he or she has no medical certification or no any form of assured certification from a university or somewhere that can say that it is safe to have for a person. And now speaking about crops and other kind of things that was done by genetic modification, there were many trial and error that happened. Like we can say that hundred thousands of batches were such that was just removed from the research. But we cannot do that for human beings. A human, if not engineered properly, and if he or she has some form of any type of medical diseases, we just cannot throw away that we can say that, oh, this batch didn't work out. Now, a first sheep batch was cloned, and it took about 277 false result to create one proper clone sheep. But we cannot do that with humans. A person, a baby, if formed with one leg or one hand, we just cannot throw him or her away. We have to look at the ethical problems and the legal standpoints which will happen if there is no restrictions or no one taking the responsibility of such cases. This is something which we should look upon, and it is very essential. And during the time of World War, Nazis had done many experiments on humans that had many repercussions on many human beings. Many lives and families were destroyed as they were just part of some lab experiments of some people who had no authority on them whatsoever. And if this happens, there are many people who will use that for their own medical and profit point of view, and that will be very dangerous for the human society. And also a human will have to face the repercussions of a genetic modification for centuries, like their children, their grandchildren, everyone will face problems like many kind of, like from the bomb blast there are in Hiroshima, Nagasaki, people still have many problems in their bodies. And if that happens for every human being facing any genetic modification, who will take the responsibility of kids and families? This is something which we have to take in consideration, and thus controlling a body is very essential, even if it has some setbacks on the research of it. In the long term, it's always advantageous. Thank you.
All right, thank you, speakers. Now we'll be moving on to the concluding statements, starting with the proposition. Please note that you're not allowed to bring up any new arguments here. Proposition, please let me know whenever you're ready.
Yeah, I'm ready. Um, I have very good arguments, but one of them that stood out for me was when the opposition speaker talked about the Nazi Party, which had which had done countless experiments on people for genetic modification. The Nazi Party, the government of Germany, the government of Germany was literally conducting these experiments to further their own political cause, which was, I don't know, ionification or even advancement in the world war. And this is what is going to happen when we introduce the word restrictions is used here, but what governments do with this is not restrictions, they use it to further their own causes. My second, another point that I noticed is we are talking about perfection of the human body here, but in the debate, in the motion, it is written improvement. And yes, a perfect human body is a different thing to imagine, and it is obviously much more difficult to think of. But when we think of a improved human body, I think restrictions are just going to hold us back in that regard. And finally, I would like to make a point that even when the industrial revolution had started, governments and even governments were very wary about it. But even if we had reinvented the industrial revolution, we might not be where we are today. So basically, I don't think shackles should be placed upon research in this particular field, especially when it can completely change how our future generations live. Thank you.
All right, thank you, Speaker. I would like to call upon the opposition to put forward their concluding statement. Opposition, please let me know when you are ready.
Yes, I would like to begin. Now, in the conclusion, I would like to say that uh, if we have to do something which is beneficial in the long run, it is always essential for a body which has a neutral standpoint. And I elaborate and I point out it's essential that the body should be of a neutral standpoint. Like example, WHO or someone who has a welfare in mind of the entire world and not just one country or not just one particular person should be in charge of such a delicate topic. It is something which can take our lives in a very good way or in a very bad way. So engineering, something which has so much impact on human body, should be monitored to a very point, and monitoring and helping something is something which is very essential, because collecting data and looking forward, like how the experiments are going and how the entire research is happening, should be the main thing to consider, because it is something which has very much moral importance in our society. And if we genetically modify every human according to everyone's own personalized need, it will just cause chaos in the society. And thus monitoring it and keeping in mind that it has a impact in the very future is something which is very essential. And speaking about the Nazi experiment, in uh, which the opposite party said that it was not restricted, is the exact example which I am setting forward, that if we have personal interest, personal interest to consider in a case, it will just cause chaos in the future. Thank you.
All right, now that we're done with the final concluding speech, we've come to the end of this debate. Chair, would you like to take some time before you give the verdict?
Yeah, I would just request the teams to the virtual flow and shake hands. It was a nice debate. Just could you like appoint me a room or somewhere we can like deliberate, me and the panelist?
Sure, Parth. Give me 1 second. In the meantime, audience, you can ask your questions to the participants. If you have any queries or anything, you can shoot it out. So we'll be back. Thank you.
Thank you.
Great debate, guys. Thank you for that. Great points.
just give them 5 to 10 minutes and the chair will be done with their verdict.
Hello, guys. Am I audible? Am I visible?
Yes.
All right, so we have a unanimous verdict. I'll give the verdict. Is that fine?
Go ahead, Parth.
Sure. All right, so the unanimous verdict is that the government bench takes this debate, the proposition bench takes this debate over the opposition bench. I'll go, this is how I'm going to structure my OA. I'm just first going to tell you what exactly was the characterization and arguments coming from both sides. And then I'm going to tell you what was the main point of conflict wherein I decided that the government bench win this case and what exactly were the contributions from both sides and why the government bench again trumped in this. All right, so I think the debate was of slightly to highly above average debate, and I appreciate the quality that is being shown over here. Next, I think depending on the contributions from both sides, I think the government bench comes up and tries to characterize this debate in terms of saying that there cannot be a neutral body. They talk about how the enforcing body has to be the government in this case, and I think so far as to say that the opposition did not explicitly rebut this, it was supposed to be agreed by both sides of the houses that there has to be a enforcing body, whether that can be WHO, whether that can be the government, or whether that can be anybody else, but there has to be an enforcing body. Next, then the government goes on to tells me, the proposition bench goes on to tells me that whoever this body is going to have its own agendas. It's going to have its own ways to politically further. It could be in terms of corruption, lobbying practices, etc., which happens mostly in like international bodies like WHO, which represents to funding, etc. Or the second, they talk about pharma mafia, right? The pharma mafia, which has a huge monopoly over the medical businesses, as well as the gene medical businesses, wherein research is being done because these pharma companies have their own research units and the funding. So it's very decent to expect that most of the research that's going to come out of the medical community is mostly going to be from the hands of these pharmaceutical big giants. You can call the big three, big four, whatever. So they go on and talk about how all these parties, whichever they're going to be, they're going to have their own agendas to further. And kind of this is one of the biggest important kind of the point in this debate, right? Because then they go on to talk about how this limitation itself is not good, as not at all on par with the kind of research that scientific limitation is going to be. That all kinds of limitation and research, ethical problems that the opposition bench is talking about is going to be mostly idealistic in nature because of the characterization that the real world that they give. But the opposition tries to oppose this by talking about how corruption, yes, exists on both sides of the house. I agree that it exists on both sides of the house, that corruption, that scientists might also be corrupt. But the problem is, even if there are scientists corrupt, right, they still have a kind of responsibility of, obviously in the sense that every single person on earth has his own vested interest in going forward and gaining money, etc., etc. But the problem is when you bring a community together, when you bring a monopoly together, their vested interests kind of drive the entire narrative. Whereas when you take about scientists, they're not a monolithic structure. They're like very small elements within a society or within an ecosystem, and their own vested interests don't exactly pull the narrative towards one side as much as the narrative that is being pulled by one side by a monopoly, right? Because of which I'm having to give this point towards the proposition bench. Next, they talk about how without resources to experimentation has incredibly improved. This came out in the first speaker. Yes, I agree that the resources of experimentation has incredibly improved along longer in time. But they also talk about how without limitations, these genes would have several everlasting side effects. It could be in terms of ethical values, it could loss of ethical values over a period of time. It could be in terms of physical manifestations of problems that could have come across in gene effects, embryo enhancements, etc. It's a really good point. The only thing that I needed from opposition bench is to draw a certain line and tell me why these everlasting side effects are only going to be happening when there are limitations. Because then even if you have limitations, right, there's still going to be gene research carrying out. There's still going to be scientists doing some sort of gene outcome, right? And no one's to say that this is going to have an everlasting effect and that's not going to have an everlasting effect, right? There's always going to be a certain matter of everlasting effect present. So you guys need to tell me why this is exclusively amongst your side. So even if you take crops enhancements, right, there were a lot of crops which came out bad, right? So and there's still a lot of crops which are almost good, and even the good crops have several everlasting effects. So even good everlasting effects exist. So you guys needed to tell me where is this line and where and how we should draw that line. That is one of the reasons why I think this point was less credited. And thirdly, the opposition bench, yes, talked about how there's going to be certain ethical harms, legal problems that needs to be solved. And these were further elaborated by talking about how common people would not trust these research scientists without some kind of certification, which came out in the second speech. But I think these problems are further mitigated by the proposition bench talking about how, firstly, they talk about how limitations, sure, they can exist, and even they agree that they can exist, but whether the ethical limitations, the especially the point of ethical limitations, they draw a line saying that scientists are much better placed to draw ethical limitations line than the government or whoever is enforcing these laws, because they have an intricate knowledge of what exactly these research indicates and what exactly could those effects be. Whereas the enforcing authority just have a sheet of paper and they're not competent enough to make the decision regarding the outcomes of this research instruments. That is the rebuttal that's provided from the proposition bench, and I fairly agree to it. The second point about how this is not just like certification that is involved, right? And this was further linked by the opposition bench talking about the Nazi experiment, right? I think even that point sort of goes over from the towards the proposition bench, because the proposition bench sort of comes over and swoops in and tells me that the Nazi thing entirely happened because it was government certified, because the German government gave certain limitations and restrictions, but these limitations and restrictions were based entirely upon their own political agendas of going further than what the other countries were going on. And that is precisely the reason why I think this debate goes on to the proposition bench, because even though good points were brought up by the opposition bench, I think they mostly came in the form of generic rebuttals. Rather, I would require more more explanation and more analysis to what impacts your arguments have, right? And the majority of this point, which was surely uncontested throughout, was that there's going to be an enforcing authority. That enforcing authority is going to have its own agenda, and that agenda, no matter what somebody can do, is always going to be there and it's always going to be furthered. And therefore, we'd rather not have any research limitations, at least officially. Sure, scientists can have their own ethical limitations, but that does not have to be enforced. And I think that's what the biggest reason why this debate goes towards the proposition bench. That is the end of my feedback, overall adjudication. Are there any questions regarding the feedback?
Yes, I have one.
Go
That you said that the government, you agreed on the point that government do not have that skilled knowledge for putting on restrictions. But when we say government, we just don't have one person. We have many medical authorities and many doctors and scientists under them who work for the government. So how can we say that they do not have the knowledge and the skills that is needed for make the decision for the overall development of every country?
All right, I'll answer that because sure. Okay, so the way to answer that is to say that I'll paraphrase the wording. Right? Scientists do not have any government executive actions. The government, on the other hand, has to look out for the public health fare, has to look out for themselves, has to look out for their own political beliefs, right? So at these two positions, even if you say, and even if I agree that there are certain medical professionals employed by the government or any enforcement authority, it is coming in comparison and coming in like sort of an amalgamation with their government, with their own executive powers, right? With their own idea to further their own vested interests. So even if it comes, it's going to be minimized. For example, I can say that for political reasons, there could be certain decisions or certain laws which are squashed, right? Just to like vis-a-vis say that the farm laws which were squashed by the government of India to further their interest in the Punjab elections, right? Even if like, the laws are specifically good or bad, regardless, I'm saying that whether that is just comes a little lesser of a burden for the enforcing authority than their own vested interests. So that's the answer to your question.
Like to interrupt you. We need to wrap this up. If there are any more questions, please, all those people move to room 5. We are done with today's debate. Thank you, all the speakers, for coming in. This was a great debate. Thank you, Chair, for joining us today. Have a good night.
All right, thank you so much for the debate. I hope to see you. Any just one more side. But if you guys have any more questions, request for personal feedback where you could have improved, please just leave, and I'll get back to you later on tonight. Okay.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you so much.
so much.
Thank you,
Thank you so
Bart.
much.
Thank you, everyone.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Thank you, everyone.
Thank you all, guys. Congratulations and all the best.
Bye.
Alright, just a second. Arjun does not have permission to speak. Please change that. Okay. Good evening, debaters. Welcome to day one of Debatables 2.0, organized by TEDxSomaiyaVidyavihar in collaboration with Somaiya Debating Society. I'm Priya Bajari, your presiding officer for the day, and Arjun would be the chair for this debate. Alright, so I hope you're clear with the format. I'll just go over it quickly. We'll start the debate with the first speaker of proposition followed by the first speaker of opposition. Each speech would have a time limit of 3 minutes, after which they'd be given 15 seconds to wrap up their speech. Any point made after these 15 seconds would not be considered. After this, we'll start with our rebuttal rounds, which would be of 4 minutes each. Then we'd move to the second round of speakers. The second speaker of proposition followed by the second speaker of opposition. These two will be of 3 minutes each, followed by 15 seconds to wrap up. Then we'll have our concluding speeches, first from proposition, then from opposition. These speeches would be made of 2 minutes each. All the best, guys. Now I'd like to request the team members to introduce themselves. We'll start with the first speaker of proposition. The first speaker of proposition. Is the second speaker of proposition here?
Yes, ma'am.
Yeah, go on introducing yourself.
I'm Vidhan Basme from KJS IEIT from EXDC branch. Me and my teammate Madhav Aswa, he is also my batchmate. We are going for preposition of benevolent dictatorship.
Alright, thank you. Now I'd like to request the first speaker of opposition introducing themselves.
Good evening to one and all present here. My name is Harsh Srivastava and I'm the first speaker of the opposition. My teammate is Alina Tom and she's the second speaker of the opposition.
Alright. Alina, would you like to add on something?
No.
Alright, so with that we can begin. Madhav, you're the first speaker, right?
Yes.
I'll put on the timer and you can then start whenever you're ready. Just give me a minute. Is my screen visible to all? Is my screen visible?
Yes.
Alright, so Madhav, are you ready?
Sorry for interruption.
Madhav? Hello, Madhav.
Due to small connection default, he is able not to on camera. It is okay.
Yeah, it's fine. But is he able to speak properly?
Yes, ma'am. I have called him. He will join.
Okay.
Wait for 2 minutes.
Alright, so let me know whenever you're ready. Madhav, are you here? Madhav, are you ready now?
Ma'am, he's coming. Wait for 1 minute.
Hello.
Vidhan, could you take Madhav on phone on a call and then he can proceed with his speech?
Ma'am, am I
Okay, okay.
audible now?
Yeah, Madhav, now you're
Yes,
audible.
you are
Yeah.
audible.
Sorry, ma'am. It was connectivity issue.
No issues, Madhav. Are you
So
ready
should
now?
yeah. Yes, I am ready.
Alright, so let me know when can I start the timer. Can I do it now?
Yeah, you can.
Alright, you may begin.
Okay. So benevolent leadership. What do we mean by benevolent leader or a dictator? A benevolent person is a kind, helpful, and a friendly person. So, what is a benevolent dictator? It is that type of governance that is acceptable by all the people of that region. For example, if we take Thomas Sankar, he is also known as Africa's Che Guevara, who was the greatest reformist of that time. He was the president of Burkina Faso country. Another example is Liu Kuan Yew. He was also a great dictator, which is the type of benevolent dictator in Singapore. So, if we take as a leader for democracy, it is not possible to change the world. As a lead for democracy, a representative is elected by the people, and that leader is governing the country. If the leader changes the rules of the constitution, he or she can become the leader for almost all of his life. For example, there are various examples: Vladimir Putin, Xi Jinping, Abdul Fattah Sisi of Egypt, etc., etc. So, if we conclude from this, we get democracy is a type of dictatorship. Means democracy can lead to dictatorships. Also, a development under dictatorship is way far better than the development under democracy. If we take China's example, development is so far high that it is now becoming a world biggest economy. Means we can say democracy is way back than dictatorships. Also, there are some flaws under democracy. During democracy, we get elections in our country, for example. So during examples, there are flaws like EVM hacks, flaws like practices during the elections, etc. So I conclude here. Thank you.
Alright, thank you. Now I would request the first speaker of opposition to begin. Let me know whenever you're ready.
Am I audible now?
Yes, you are. Is this Harsh?
Yeah, this is Harsh.
Yeah.
My name is
Can
Harsh,
I?
and I'm the first speaker for the opposition.
Should I begin?
Yeah.
Okay.
So one may wonder that how is a democracy, especially a weak one, better than a dictatorship, a benevolent one, to be precise. So a democratic government is a far better form of government because it is more accountable. It improves the quality of decision making that a country goes through for implementing the laws. The democracy provides a method to deal with the differences and conflicts which arise among the different sections of society. It also promotes equality among the citizens, which I think is one of the most important factors which we get. The people have a more, they are more free and they have a more liberty in case of a democratic nation as compared to a dictatorship. So we as individuals only have one tool to limit corruption in the government or the leaders, which can be achieved only by a change in leadership. In a democracy, even in its weakest form, we have the potential to change, and it always has a room for improvement. Whereas in a dictatorship, you basically do not have any right with regards to the change in the leadership. It can only be achieved by either if the people decide to throw the government out of power or strip them of their power. That is the only solution which one gets in a dictatorship. So I feel like there are no benevolent dictators, to be precise. Even if they start as one, the corrupting forces would often compel them to change their stance. They may also cater to only a specific part of the society, which in most cases in a dictatorship is the elites or the high-ranking military officials. So they may not look for the development of the entire population. They may just cater to a certain part of the society. Looking at it from the people's perspective, a dictatorship is only appealing to them as long as the dictator is doing what they want them to uh, apply in the society. As soon as they believe a decision is wrong, they'll start to challenge it and they are likely to find themselves imprisoned. This may not happen in a democracy because you get certain rights where you can question the government or ask them for changes. A recent example I would like to say is I think most of us have read about the farm laws where people had been protesting for over a year and the government finally listened to them. I don't think you would find such a thing in a dictatorship because you would not be allowed to question the decision at any cost. So I would like to conclude by saying that in a dictatorship, it's only one person ruling the entire nation, where human nature can create a lot of biases in the decisions. So that is why the democracy is preferred over the dictatorship, where everyone comes together to choose their representatives and which who may do good for them in the society. Thank you.
Thank you, speakers. With that, we move ahead with our rebuttal round. Our rebuttal round would be 4 minutes long, and it will begin with with the opposition asking the first question. The proposition will reply and in turn ask a question as well. I would like you all to know that no cross questioning, cross talks, or follow ups are allowed. I understand that some of you might feel that your questions are not answered properly, but this would be taken care by the chair while making his verdict. So with that, we can begin with the opposition team asking the question. Your time begins now.
Uh, okay. So the first speaker said that he gave the example of China that they have seen immense development. So I would like to ask you this: would you, in a dictatorship, would you place the development of the nation over the happiness of the people? Are the people actually happy they're living under the censorship which is faced by them in the dictatorship?
I would like to answer this. As you have said, the happiness of the people is way better, is very important for the nation. But happiness too comes after the development also. Means if we see the happiness index of India over China, it is way below than China. So development have a great impact on happiness of the people. And yeah, thank you.
I would like to ask a question to an opposition. What if the democratic leader infiltrate all the constitution and gain his power for lifetime? The best example is Vladimir Putin. He elected for 5 years and then he changed all the constitution and all the democratic system and remains in a power. So why this weak democracy is converting into the benevolent dictatorship? So what you will say about this?
Uh, okay, so you are saying that okay, that if a leader is changing the laws and using it to uh, his own advantage, he is basically becoming a dictator. So you are just proving your own point that a dictatorship is not the right form of governance. But I would like to say that yeah, the people also have the chance for re-elections which are held, and I don't think the constitution is so weak that anyone can change it abruptly. And yeah, okay, I'd like to conclude.
I would like to ask the next question. That is, in a benevolent dictatorship, there is a risk if the dictator changes, becomes a bad person, or if the successor is not as brilliant. Is that a risk that countries should take?
I would like to say there is a big difference between a benevolent dictatorship and a monarchy. Monarchy is something that succession is there. In dictatorship, no succession is there. In fact, any people can become a dictator of a country. In monarchy, it is not possible. And you say it is only in dictatorship. It is also in the democratic parties. The XYZ parties ruling from 70 years has its succession. What you will tell about that?
Any other questions?
I have a question. My question to the speaker is, as he said, there is a great decision making and judiciary. So, if we come in a dictatorship, the judiciary will be more way faster than that in democracy, and also the decision making will be singly handed than through the democracy, because in democracy we have to wait for all the voting polls and all, like in the houses of parliament. So what would you like to tell about it?
As you said, it takes a lot of time for the elections and everything, but that is the thing which saves you from the other leader. So suppose you are not happy with the decisions of the leader who is in power right now, you could obviously vote for someone else in the next term so that he could come into power. And as you said, the decision making would be a faster process and a single channel, but I think that a single person making all the decisions would not be fair, because he or she may have certain biases towards different people. So,
All right, the time is up. Okay, so with that, we're done with the rebuttal round and we'll begin with the second set of speeches. The second speaker of the proposition team can begin after I reset. All right, the second speaker, are you ready now?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay.
I would like to start with a quote: too much freedom is as bad as no freedom. You can take an example of China and all other countries during COVID cases. Why the people survive in China more less infected? Because there is no such freedom of speech or anything. It is very much fact that the freedom to a human being is less everything. He needed much and much more freedom. And in democracy also there is a less extent of freedom. You can say that in judiciary the case is that the rape case is going in the court, and recently the father and the soldier has shoot in out of the court. So why here democracy fails to have a decision making? There is a lot of time to make a decision. And yes, I would like to also mention a quote that in a democracy, you like to, the political parties are like to do one thing. while they intend to do another thing, and they do neither thing they want to say, and they neither do what they intended. So here's we I want to say that democracy is a form of government which is totally weak, neither has a very fast decision making. Due to this, many cases are faulty. There are many we are talking about weak democracy. Here the democracy never exists in really. What is written in the theory part, that is never exist in really in the life, because the practically the democracy is going with false practices like EVM scams, false money launderings and all. There are various scams you are heard about, and there are many examples such as Valdebal Putin and that uh, African one have been a case where he infiltrate all the constitution and rule for the life. Here is a weak democracy fault come upon. And the another point I will go upon the development. The development is totally low. And you will say about judiciary. Judiciary is nothing. Judiciary has taken a fall part from many years for being under the central government. It is, you all know that all the things are going for corruption. I will end up with the corruption is the only fact of democracy. Nothing has left in democracy. A weak democracy leads to, and we are going with a not it's a benevolent dictatorship, not a Hitler type dictatorship. The candidate mentioned also that he is also giving his conclude that dictatorship is bad because they may change the conclusion, but this is not bad. And I would like to also say that all the political parties, all the leaders in Democrat are all competition of wealth. All are doing their own private money, and nothing is there. The corruption is there in whole democracy. I would like to conclude.
Thank you, speaker. Now, can I request the second speaker of opposition to kindly take over?
Yes, strongly disagree with what was just said. Corruption is there in dictatorship too, and we cannot say that corruption is there in every democracy. If in weak democracy there is corruption, there is also potential for change. After the ruling party's term is over, you get a chance to elect for more powerful more fair authorities. In a democracy, you have people who will listen to every community, but when it's a dictatorship, you cannot listen to everyone. Even a benevolent dictator is only benevolent to some people. Like my partner said earlier, he cannot be benevolent to everyone. It is about perspective. If I feel like a certain dictator is fair or benevolent, uh, not everyone will necessarily think like that. And who will speak for them then? And if anybody does speak for them, they end up in prison or worse. Moreover, if the dictator turns out to be a bad person in the future, or if their successor is not as good, what will the country do then? They are putting themselves at the mercy of one person who has all power, and y'all are expecting him to remain as a virtuous person even with all that power. And human tendencies always show that when there is a chance where they can be greedy or they can turn out to be a bad person, there is more of a chance that they will take the wrong decisions. uh, we cannot depend we cannot put the all the rights of the whole country in the hands of one person. um, the dictator may be known to be fair but may have certain wrong perceptions. Like if we talk about same sex marriages, if there is a director who is always fair but doesn't support same sex marriages, what about the people who might want that in their country? What will they do? Certain things like that. So corruption is relative. If there is corruption in democracy, there is also corruption in dictatorship. but there is no potential for change in dictatorship as opposed to democracy. Thank you.
Thank you, speaker. With that, we move on to the concluding speeches. I request the proposition team to first make their concluding speech. Make sure to add no new points in the conclusion.
Yes. Should I start?
Just a minute. Yeah, you may begin now.
So I would like to start. Benevolent and enlightened wise dictators are the most efficient type of governance. Also, dictatorships arises due to weak democracies and are most aggravated form of trinity and slavery out of the most extreme liberty. It is rightly said, when dictatorship is a fact, revolution becomes a right. So, also as the opposition has said, there is potential for change. We can't confirm that there is potential for change in the democracy also. Also, there will be no also, as they have said, successions can happen in the democracy too. So we can't confirm that a democracy will be also a developed democracy or it can be a path road to the dictatorship. Hence, I will like to conclude dictatorship, which is the benevolent dictatorship, it is the best form of governance for a nation to develop rather than a weak democracy, because a weak democracy will also have flaws in them. Thank you.
All right. So we move on to the next concluding speech by the opposition.
Should I start?
Tell me when you're ready. Yeah, you can.
Yeah. So I would like to conclude by saying that democracy is a government of the people, by the people, and for the people. So as the proposition also said that there's a room there the democracy in democracy there's no room for improvement, which I think is completely wrong, because democracy is democracy itself advocates for change for better, and all the democracies often begin as a weak one, but with time they do get better with different leaders who put in different contributions to the nation building. And different people might have different views on benevolent dictators and a democracy, but since the power is distributed among so many people in a democracy, I think it works for a better developing of the nation, and because the people would be more motivated and innovative in nature. So in the dictatorship, the power is only in one hand, therefore it does not promote equality among the citizens. And in democracy, the people have the right to experience and enjoy the same political, social, or economic rights as the leader of the nation will. They all have the same fundamental rights which is given to them by the constitution and the democracy. Therefore, I would like to conclude here.
All right. So that was the end of our debating session. Thank you so much, participants. Chair, would you like to take some time before giving the verdict?
Okay, I've already figured out the verdict. Just give me 1 second, please, and I'll start. So let me just organize my thoughts.
All right, sure. Yes, sure.
Okay, I'm going to begin the verdict by declaring who the winner is. Side in a surprisingly close debate, I think side opposition takes this debate for a few reasons. First of all, I think there's a structural misunderstanding of what a benevolent dictatorship versus a regular democracy entails. That is to say, I think side government ran with this idea that benevolent dictatorships do not have the ability to be malicious by the nature that they're benevolent, and I think that's the point. And I think that's the ambit within which I consider the debate. But, oh god. But going ahead, I think there's a few errors side government makes in the argumentation. First of all, in the opening speech, side government brings out this idea that benevolent Dictatorships are fast in nature, that is to say that they make decisions quickly. This is an idea that's resonated throughout throughout the rebuttal rounds and in the second speech. It's not brought up in the first speech, so I have to sort of like consider that this is not a central idea of the debate that they're bringing in. The opening speech also brings us ideas such as democracy has flaws in elections. Any elaboration for this comes in the closing speech only, with the second speech making a small idea that the democracy is generally speaking slow and therefore not good. One idea that I do credit side government with is this idea that generally speaking, a benevolent dictatorship makes good decisions for the people, and an economic and social uprising for the people, or any kind of mobility, social or economic mobility, is generally going to lead to a happier populace. I think this is brought out in the first rebuttal round. Where I start marking downside government is the fact that there's just no elaboration. I think in general this is sort of overlying theme of the debate. If you're going to be bringing up this idea that that elections are a flaw of democracy, you have to also start elaborating on what the flaws are. I think side opposition does a good idea of saying that, or at least does a good idea of like giving some kind of elaboration that elections are generally speaking a good thing, because even benevolent dictatorships generally have a headset mindset on what is the correct decisions to be made, and the people in particular have a onus or a vote into what ideas are implemented, even if it's a majoritarian. For instance, if majoritarian ideas are progressive and the benevolent dictatorship does not necessarily agree with that, there's this ability to oust them and get the views of the nation. I think this debate would have been a bit of a higher level if the discussion centered around this idea that should people have this kind of free will in being able to vote for what they think is right, because the opinion of the masses is, and this is a personal interjection, the opinion of the masses is generally not a correct thing. For instance, Brexit was overwhelmingly voted for in favor, and the fallout of Brexit has crushed the economy. And some kind of elaboration on the sense that, like, should people who generally don't have the education to run a country be also liable to have such big voting power? But because side government does not have any kind of elaboration on the sense and like what the flaws of democracy necessarily are, besides the fact that democracy can have corruption in it, and at that point I think I have to consider side opposition's point, saying that dictatorships by the very nature, even if I can't consider them corrupt because of the ambit of the motion, I can take side opposition's point in saying that benevolent dictatorships do not represent the people. This is a point that stands throughout the debate. And in the majoritarian clash of do we want to make the best economic and social decisions for the people and quick decisions, versus do we want to let the decision making rely on the people because the democracy and the right to vote, that argument stands for side opposition, and that's the biggest deciding factor that we've had. As a general piece of advice to everyone is, you cannot just make blanket statements. For instance, you cannot just say democracy is flawed and there's flaws in elections. You have to elaborate on what these flaws in elections are. You have to understand that adjudicators have to pretend to be just informed citizens. We cannot come to any conclusions of our own. You cannot just jump to a point. You have to have some kind of mechanism or some kind of extension to really hammer it in. And I think that is about it for my verdict. Are there any questions regarding this verdict? Or can I just like stop and give the scores out? I won't be giving the scores to you guys. I'll be giving the scores to the panel, but that is about my verdict. Are there any questions regarding this verdict?
No, sir.
There's no questions regarding. There's no questions. Okay, cool. Okay, there's no questions regarding the verdict. Congratulations to side opposition. We will. I don't know if I see you guys in well and good. Otherwise, good luck for the rest of the tournament. This concludes the debate. Virtually shake hands. Let's congratulate each other, and I hope to see you guys for other events that Somaiya Debating Society hosts. You guys, the moderator and the moderator can take over now.
Thank you so much to the chair and to the participants. It was a very nice debate. If the audience has any questions for the participants, they can take it now. Shravani, could you please help these guys unmute if they want to? Sure. Audience, do you have any questions?
Hi, is Ria here? I have sent you the scores in posted chat. Please have a look at them.
All right. Thank you so much. Seeing no questions, I think we're done here. Thank you so much, participants. Have a good day.
Thank you. It was a great session.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Congratulations,
Thank you.
guys.
Okay, everyone, we are done for the day one. Thank you so much for joining with us. We will meet you tomorrow with the day two and with the participant who will get selected for the next debate session. Until then, enjoy yourself. Have a great night. Bye bye.